in theory, do most Black Americans have an accent that resembles a Southern accent? I actually have a degree in English. I was an English major in college, and I learned about this some, that ultimately the Black American dialect resembles a Southern accent. Why? Very predictably, because the slaves that were in the South, even when they ended up going up to the Midwest and the North, they carried with them a certain dialect that resembled a Southern accent where they were slaves. So even as they had their own families, let's say in Michigan, these Black Americans who were descendants of people that lived in Virginia and Tennessee and Alabama, they carried on that accent. And that, as you by default teach your own kids to speak, because they live in the same house as you, they end up having the same dialect as you. So now we've got Black Americans in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and in theory everywhere else, that have a certain accent that still goes back to that Southern accent. No matter where they live. You could be in New York State. You could be in Syracuse, New York. Random. You could be, let's see, how about this? Somewhere in California. You could be right outside of Los Angeles. But still, if you're a Black American, your chances of having an accent or a dialect that resembles a Southern accent is still going to be pretty high chance. So it's interesting when you look at maps and you look at the Southern accent across America where it is, quite predictably, you know, from North Carolina, Virginia, all the way over to Texas, and then kind of stops in southern Missouri, goes through most of Kentucky and so on, but stops at Ohio. You kind of, very predictable. But in theory, do we have these pockets of Southern accents? In theory, because of Black Americans and not just people who've actually moved from the South that were white. I want to know. I think the thing that really brought this to my attention was when I first moved to Nashville. I'm from Northern Alabama, but I moved to Nashville out of college. I had a friend that was Black, and we went to Wendy's. And it's funny because if you know how I eat now, you're like, wow, you actually, well, a long time ago, yeah, I used to go to fast food. And I was at Wendy's. My friend was Black, and the cashier was Black as well. And my friend was actually from upstate New York. And after taking the order, my friend said to me, man, everybody's got Southern accents, even other Black people. And that's when I thought about it. Well, so many people that are Black have an accent that resembles that, but then there's those who don't. So there's definitely exceptions to the rule, but if we have to acknowledge that as the exception to the rule, like my friend was, being from upstate New York, in theory, if we have to acknowledge that there's an exception to the rule, that means a definite pattern exists most of the time. But maybe I'm completely wrong about all of this. Okay? Maybe my perceptions are false. So I want to know. And by the way, I know a lot of my viewers and a lot of my subscribers on this channel are Black Americans, and I'm so glad you're here because this channel is about diversity. It's not about finding out what we are different about or disagree on or anything like that. It's about focusing on what we have in common and having open conversations about it. I think there's so much value in that. I celebrate the diversity. So for all the Black Americans watching my channel, I'm so grateful that you're here, and I would especially like to know what you think about this. Do you feel that the Black dialect that not all Black Americans have, but many do you feel that resembles kind of a Southern accent no matter where you live in America, even if it was great-great-grandparents that were in the South after they were slaves and after they were free? What do you think about all this? This conversation will not really have any good value for me until I hear from you. So please, teach me the rest right here in the comment section.